Okay, forget all the headlines, forget the price charts for a minute. We're going to go way back, right to the very beginning of a technology that, well, you know it, changed the world. This is the story of those first crucial 73 days, the moment when Bitcoin went from just an idea on paper to a living, breathing reality.
And right at the heart of it all, there's this ghost, a mysterious, pseudonymous creator we only know as Satoshi Nakamoto. And here's the crazy part. To this day, nobody knows who he or she or they really were. Were they even a single person? We just don't know. And that mystery, it's baked right into the DNA of Bitcoin's origin story.
Now, this right here, this was the title of a simple 9-page document. I mean, it sounds pretty unassuming, right? But the idea packed inside was, well, it was explosive. It was a blueprint for sending money directly from one person to another anywhere on the planet with no bank, no government, no middleman at all.
All right, so it really all started with a single email. Just one. This white paper, sent out into the wild, kicked off this quiet but really intense debate. And it laid the foundation for, well, for everything that came after.
So picture this, it's Halloween 2008. The entire global financial system is basically in the middle of a meltdown. And on that day, Satoshi sends this paper to a super niche group of cryptographers and privacy advocates called the cypherpunks. Now, you have to understand, these were the exact people who had been trying and failing to build digital cash for decades. And suddenly, this Satoshi person shows up and claims to have finally cracked the code.
Okay, so to make this whole thing work, Satoshi had to solve what's known as the double spending problem, and it's actually pretty simple to understand. Think about a photo on your computer. You can copy it a million times, right? So if your money is just a digital file, what stops you from copying a digital dollar and spending it over and over again? This was the huge monumental roadblock for digital cash for years. It was the one problem nobody could seem to solve in a clean, elegant way.
And this is where Satoshi's genius really shines. It wasn't one single new idea, but a combination of several clever concepts into one system. Here's how it works, in a nutshell. First, every transaction is broadcast out to everyone on the network. Then, you've got these miners who are competing to bundle all those transactions into a block. To do that, they have to solve a super complex math puzzle. We call that proof of work. The first one to solve it gets to add their block to this public, permanent chain of all previous blocks, the blockchain. And for their trouble, they get rewarded with brand new Bitcoin. It's that incentive, that reward, that makes the whole system secure and pretty much impossible to cheat.
So it was a beautiful solution, on paper. But the big question was, would it actually hold up under real scrutiny? Satoshi's idea was about to get its first trial by fire, and it was coming from the very experts he, or she, was trying to convince.
And sure enough, the responses started to trickle in. You had people like Wei Dai, who had created his own B-money concept that was a big inspiration for Bitcoin. He gave it a thumbs up. Then there was Hal Finney, a legendary figure in the cypherpunk community who was hooked right away. But not everyone was sold. Others were way more skeptical, and they started asking some really tough questions. Could a system like this actually scale up for global use? And what about the energy costs? How much power would this thing eventually chew through?
And you know what's so fascinating? Watching Satoshi handle all this. For every single major critique that came up, Satoshi had a calm, thoughtful answer ready. Worried about high energy costs? Well, the Bitcoin reward is designed to create a market incentive that will cover those costs. Concerned it's too much data for a global system? Don't worry, most people won't need to run a full node and download the entire blockchain. It was these early debates that were absolutely crucial for stress testing the idea and making it stronger. Okay, so with the theory defended and sharpened, it was finally time to build the thing. And you've got to remember, this wasn't some big corporate project or a team of developers. Nope, the code was written almost entirely by one person, working alone. So while all this debate was raging on the mailing list, Satoshi was just quietly coding in the background. By the end of 2008, Bitcoin version 0.1 was pretty much done. This was it. This was the engine that was going to bring that white paper to life. It was lean, it was minimal, but it was a fully functional piece of software. And that brings us to the moment of creation, the real point of no return. This is where Bitcoin stops being just a project on someone's hard drive and becomes a live, breathing, independent network. January 3rd, 2009. That's the day. Satoshi Nakamoto mined block number 0, the very first one. We call it the Genesis block, and with that single act, the Bitcoin network just sparked into existence. And this part is just incredible. You see, embedded forever inside the code of that very first block was this headline from a British newspaper: Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. This wasn't just a random timestamp. It was a message, a powerful commentary on the failures of the old financial system, the very system Bitcoin was built to be an alternative to.
So for mining that block, the system created 50 brand new Bitcoins. That was the first ever block reward. But here's a fun little fact. Because of a quirk in the code, those specific 50 coins can never, ever be spent. They just sit there, kind of like a permanent monument to the birth of the network.
All right, so the network was officially alive. But there was one last test, the big one. Could it actually do the thing it was designed for? Could it really transfer value from one person to another with absolutely no one in the middle?
And this is the number that proved it all worked. 10. 10 Bitcoin. That was the amount of the very first peer-to-peer transaction in human history.
So just 9 days after that first block was mined, on January 12th, Satoshi sent those 10 Bitcoin to Hal Finney. Remember him? The cryptographer who was so enthusiastic from the start. Finney had downloaded the software and was running the only other computer or node on the entire network at that point. And you know what? The transaction went through perfectly.
And honestly, this is the moment that really changes everything. Because now, Bitcoin wasn't just Satoshi's private little experiment anymore. With 2 people on the network, it was now a real peer-to-peer system. The theory was officially a reality. The concept was proven.
So let's just recap. From the white paper dropping on Halloween to that first successful transaction on January 12th, that's only 73 days. Think about that. In just over 2 months, some anonymous creator took a world-changing idea, defended against the smartest people in the field, single-handedly coded it into existence, and then just launched it into the world. It really leaves you with one fascinating question, doesn't it? What happens when an idea that powerful belongs to no one?